I've had a wonderful morning. I don't know how many of you have been around to see the different stands. Tremendous excitement, tremendous energy, and I'm very grateful for the half an hour that I have in sharing with you where I believe innovation is and will be in the future. Most of us will appreciate over the last, we've just about to reach the first anniversary of high quality care for all. And most of us acknowledge the fact that very different report than what we have previously seen from the Department of Health. If you look at the NHS plan in its day, was considered as an innovative white paper. The impact we've seen from the NHS plan is visible to all of us. Improvements which are discrete in many areas of care. What the next stage review did was to build that momentum from bottom up rather than the historical way of a top-down approach, and that momentum built a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and creativity across the 10 regions in publishing their 10 regional reports. And as you know, we published the enabling report in high quality care for all. What we've learned from that process is something that Michelangelo would have told us 500 years ago. The creativity, the ambition of the local reports far exceeds any aspirations, and I'm telling you this, that anyone in the Department of Health would have expected. That in itself is the message today. There's a tremendous amount of energy that could be unleashed if clinicians and managers look at the evidence base and decide what their local visions are. And we've made it very clear, quality is what we are all aspiring to achieve. To get us ready to the next phase of reforms based on some of the challenges facing us in the future, I'm sure you will agree they're very different than the challenges we've seen in the past. The challenges of access to elective care, the challenges of waiting times, the challenges of A&E admissions are very, very different than the challenges facing us in the future. The aging population, lifestyle diseases, some of the technological advances that we've seen out there, and certainly the expectations of the patients and the staff who are working in the health service. To add to that burden, we're also quite sensitive to the economic climb down that we have seen. What's very different about that economic climb down, it hasn't hit our shores and certainly wouldn't hit our shores for another 18 months. So how are we going to tackle some of these major challenges? We've made a commitment that quality is going to be the organizing principle, and quality is what we all aspire to. The solution to that aspiration is innovation, and I have no doubt you have seen many, many solutions to many challenging problems facing you as you go around the different strands. Now, what is innovation? I think I'm going to start with my own personal examples when it comes to innovation, being a clinician and a surgeon working in the health service. And I'm also going to share with you some of the challenges I believe which we need to address if innovation is going to be the enabler in achieving high quality care for all. Innovation in the NHS isn't just about pharmaceuticals, new drugs, isn't about new gizmos. Innovation is also about changes in clinical practice. Innovation is also about looking at delivery models of care. Innovation is also about management. I made it clear this morning when we looked at the video that the NHS has a very proud history when it comes to inventions. You can start from penicillin, you can look at Hounsfield and discovery of the CT scanners, and many, many other inventions. I made the point this morning that 40% of inventions over the last 50 years have come from this country. However, if you look at the evidence based out there, and I'm going to use MRI, Peter Mansfield discovered MRI back in 1967 in Nottingham. What's unique about that, although a very proud history, most of the MRIs and its dissemination happened in the United States rather than the United Kingdom. And Peter Mansfield wasn't recognized for that work until 2005 when he won the Nobel Prize. Our attempt through this conference is increasing the awareness of innovation and many of our workforce in identifying what the clinical needs are. I'm going to share with you my own work, starting off with robotic surgery, a very small specialized area which has really picked up the momentum over the last 6 or 7 years. There are 16 centers now in England alone doing robotic surgery. And let me just share with you what I mean by a clinical need. This is a coronary artery bypass graft. The operation is carried out, as you can see, on a beating heart. One of the challenges facing a surgeon operating on a beating heart is to get that stability that is required to do the very fine vascular anastomosis during that fairly complicated procedure. So the challenge was, could we operate on a beating heart without actually stopping the heart by putting the patient on a heart bypass machine? Now, this is a wacky idea. Let me just explain to you why it is wacky. If you measure the convergence of the eye and track both eye movements and use the surgeon's brain, you can actually measure the depth of the tissue that the surgeon is looking at. And if you have that tissue characteristics, then you can put it through a fairly complex computer algorithm which will generate, as the surgeon is looking at the right and the left eye as they're being tracked, a reconstruction of the heart and measuring the depth of that tissue. The idea here was, could we move the scope at the same frequency at the beating heart? By doing that, essentially, you could display to the surgeon a static heart. Let me explain to you probably the best analogy of this would be, you might be traveling on the motorway, driving at a certain speed, and you have a car beside you driving exactly at the same speed. You look through the window and the car looks static. A frightening experience to your anaesthetist when you see that the heart has stopped, but not a bad thing to wake them up. Innovation isn't about the high-tech, expensive end of technological and disruptive innovation. It is also about other innovations. And if you could go out and look at design for dignity, certainly one of the innovations that I came across with David Nicholson during our visit to Sheffield, you will come across some very creative, innovative products out there that could have a huge impact on the patient experience, ranging from incontinence devices, the Dignity bidet and the Commode, which very simple innovation, very cheap innovation, but could have a tremendous impact on the quality of care that might be provided with patients with strokes and patients with incontinence. Innovation also is shifting medicine from the days of intuitive medicine, intuitive diagnosis, intuitive treatment, into the days of empirical evidence-based medicine, and the future is even brighter. We're moving in what we call precise medicine. The ability to take a throat swab and make a diagnosis of a strep throat, a precise diagnosis with a precise treatment in itself could have a huge impact in the way we deliver healthcare in the future. We've seen an example of this also in the HER2 receptors and the introduction of Herceptin in the treatment of breast cancer. So the tremendous opportunities in what is coming through the pipeline of technological innovation, whether that happens to be in molecular diagnostics, in genetics, but also in imaging. Innovation isn't about technological discoveries only. Innovation is also about business models of innovation. And I'm going to share with you a small little video clip looking at service redesign. And this is something I did in London 2 years ago when I was involved in the London's Framework for Action, which is the vision for London's healthcare. And I'm going to show you a video tracking the movement of a patient undergoing an elective treatment. In other words, what we call the planned pathway of care.